Did you know that clutter doesn't just take up space? It takes a toll on your brain? For many people over 60, clutter quietly chips away at focus, memory, and peace of mind. It's not just the overflowing drawer or that pile of unopened mail on the counter. It's the mental weight of too many "I'll get to it later" moments. And that weight, it builds up until suddenly, even the smallest task feels exhausting. You might look around your home and think, "Where do I even begin?" Or worse, you might start and stop, only to feel more overwhelmed than before. But here's something you've probably never been told. Your brain isn't the problem. The real issue is how clutter silently overstimulates the older brain, draining attention, increasing anxiety, and triggering guilt. Yes, even sentimental items can quietly keep you stuck in the past and prevent you from enjoying the now. But there's good news. You don't need a full weekend, fancy storage bins, or even a strong back. What you need is a new way of looking at your space, and a few simple but surprising tricks designed specifically for how a mature, distracted mind works. Not tips for the general public, but real solutions for you. And today, I'll show you 7 of the most unusual and effective decluttering hacks that older adults swear by, the kind that create peace without pressure and clarity without chaos. Meet Thelma Rose, a name as unique as the woman herself. At 67, she's a retired amusement park seamstress from Ohio, known for her quick wit, bold lipstick, and an attic filled with just-in-case memories. She lived alone in a red brick bungalow she inherited from her parents, surrounded by decades of keepsakes that seemed harmless until they weren't. For years, Thelma Rose believed that her collection of costume patterns, fabric swatches, vintage buttons, postcards, and unopened letters was a testament to a life well lived. She'd often say, "Every thread tells a story." And while that may have been true, she hadn't noticed how much those stories were slowly closing in on her. At first, it was subtle. She stopped using her sewing table because it was buried under projects she never finished. Then, she began feeling mentally cloudy, losing track of tasks, rereading the same sentence in her books, and forgetting why she walked into a room. When her favorite mug disappeared under a pile of catalogs for over a week, she brushed it off. But deep down, she was beginning to feel something wasn't right. The real wake-up call came on a rainy Tuesday, when she tripped over a storage box in her hallway. As she sat on the floor, embarrassed and bruised, she looked around and saw not comfort, but chaos. The kind of clutter that doesn't scream, but whispers constantly. The kind that tells you, "You're behind. You're stuck. You can't let go." That night, Thelma Rose didn't make a big announcement or post anything online. She simply cleared a dusty shelf beside her bedroom window. One shelf, one evening. But something surprising happened. That tiny cleared space gave her room to breathe, literally and mentally. The next morning, she opened the curtains for the first time in months. And instead of starting her day buried in distraction, she stood quietly, watching the sunlight fall onto her freshly cleared shelf. What changed wasn't just her home, it was her perspective. Thelma realized she didn't have to keep everything to honor her past. She could choose what stayed and what no longer served her. She wasn't erasing her life, she was editing it to make space for the parts she still wanted to live. Her story isn't about becoming someone else. It's about becoming lighter, more present. And if you've ever looked around and felt like your things are closing in on your thoughts, then you'll see a bit of yourself in Thelma Rose. Because sometimes, letting go of what's weighing you down doesn't start with a plan, it starts with a shelf. Hack 1. The one-touch rule. Let's talk about something deceptively simple, yet powerfully life-changing. The one-touch rule. It's not about being fast or efficient. It's about protecting your energy and preserving your mental clarity, especially after 60, when decision fatigue can sneak up faster than we expect. Here's how it works. Whenever you pick something up, a magazine, a receipt, a pair of socks, an old birthday card, you commit to making just one decision about it. Not 5, not later, not, "I'll set this here for now." Just one decision. Keep it, give it, or toss it. That's it. Why is this so important? Because for many older adults, clutter doesn't pile up because of laziness. It piles up because of hesitation. The longer we delay a choice, the more emotional weight that object gains. A simple envelope can go from junk mail to a guilt trip in a matter of days. I should open it. I should file it. I should probably call someone about this. And suddenly, it's not a piece of paper anymore. It's a reminder of what you haven't done. Thelma Rose learned this the hard way. One afternoon, she picked up an old scarf from her sewing chair. It had belonged to her sister. She held it, smelled it, and froze. What should she do? Keep it in a drawer? Donate it? Frame it? The longer she stood there, the more drained she felt. That scarf was beautiful, but it wasn't bringing her peace. That moment became her turning point. She realized she had to trust herself. She gently folded it, placed it in her donation box, and whispered, "Thank you." One touch, one choice, one release. The beauty of the one-touch rule is that it gives you permission to trust your instincts. You're not putting pressure on yourself to sort the entire house in one go. You're simply committing to the moment in front of you. And believe it or not, that's where transformation begins, not in the grand gestures, but in the quiet, everyday moments of clarity. This rule also protects your limited energy. Let's face it, after 60, your body doesn't rebound the way it used to. The idea of doing things twice, or worse, leaving things half done and coming back to them later, is not only exhausting, it's frustrating. The one-touch rule keeps you from rehandling the same item over and over, draining your energy with each pass. You don't need a label maker or matching bins to start. Just this one habit. You pick it up, you decide, and you move forward. Not backward, not sideways, forward. And when your home starts to reflect that movement, your mind follows, lighter, clearer, and more in tune with what really matters. Hack 2. Create a no-clutter zone. What if you could press a mental reset button every time you walked into a room? Not by overhauling your entire house, but by clearing just one small surface. That's the idea behind the no-clutter zone. It's more than just a clean spot. It's a place your eyes and brain can rest. A visual sigh of relief in the middle of a busy, overstimulating world. As we age, our brains naturally become more sensitive to visual noise. A cluttered room can overwhelm you, not because you're messy, but because every object is quietly competing for your attention. Mail, remote controls, books, receipts, cups, chargers. It's like a choir of unfinished tasks, humming in the background of your mind. And that background noise, it adds up to real mental fatigue, especially for seniors already juggling health changes, medications, or the emotional weight of downsizing. Thelma Rose discovered this one day while dusting her hallway console table. She usually dumped her keys, old receipts, and pocket change there. But that day, she moved everything off and wiped it clean. When she stepped back, something unexpected happened. She exhaled. It felt like fresh air, even though nothing else in the house had changed. That one tiny spot, clear and peaceful, gave her a sense of control she hadn't felt in years. So how do you create your no-clutter zone? Start by choosing one small, visible surface that you see every day. Maybe the top of your dresser, your nightstand, or the corner of your kitchen counter. Make it beautiful, not just bare. Maybe place a candle, a framed photo, or a small plant there. Something that feels peaceful, personal, and intentional. And here's the key. Protect that space like it's sacred. No piles, no mail, no "I'll set this here for now." That zone becomes your daily proof that you get to decide what takes up space in your life. It's a quiet declaration of order in the middle of the everyday mess. What's remarkable is how this one surface influences your mood. Neuroscientists call it visual anchoring. The brain finds comfort in patterns, and a consistently clear space sends a subtle message that says, you're safe, you're in control. That's incredibly empowering, especially after 60, when so many parts of life, health, family dynamics, finances, can start to feel unpredictable. This isn't about making your home look like a magazine. It's about creating one small place where your mind can rest. And in a world that often demands more, faster, louder, your no-clutter zone whispers something softer. Peace is possible, one surface at a time. Hack 3. Visual container sorting. Time pressure can be one of the biggest mental barriers to decluttering, especially after 60. You may tell yourself, I'll clean for 30 minutes. But what happens when the clock starts ticking? Suddenly, You're watching the time instead of focusing on the task. It feels rushed, overwhelming, and somehow never quite enough. That's why this next hack tosses the timer out the window and replaces it with something far more intuitive: the visual container sorting method. Here's how it works. Instead of setting a timer, you grab a single physical container, a laundry basket, a cardboard box, even a large mixing bowl. Your only goal is to sort through items until that container is full. That's it. Not the whole shelf, not the entire closet, just the amount that fits in that one space. Once it's full, you stop. You've reached a natural finish line, not a stressful one. This approach works beautifully for seniors because it removes abstract time limits and replaces them with a tangible goal. After 60, energy can come in waves. You might wake up feeling motivated, only to tire quickly by the afternoon. With visual container sorting, you honor your own pace, and that creates an empowering experience instead of a draining one. Thelma Rose, our bold and beautifully stubborn friend from Ohio, found herself stuck trying to clean out her craft closet one weekend. She told herself she'd spend just 15 minutes. But 5 minutes in, she was already checking the clock and feeling discouraged. Then she remembered something her friend had mentioned about using a basket as a decluttering boundary. So, she grabbed her old Easter basket, the one with the broken handle and fading paint, and made it her new goal. "I'll just fill this up and stop," she said. And for the first time in a long while, she decluttered without guilt, without exhaustion, and without watching the time. This method also helps reframe what success looks like. Instead of feeling defeated that you didn't finish the entire room, you feel accomplished because you completed a clearly defined task. And every time you empty that full container, whether you're tossing, donating, or relocating items, you experience a sense of progress. Not all or nothing thinking, just steady, manageable steps. The magic lies in the flexibility. Some days, your container might fill quickly. Other days, you might only get halfway through. That's okay. The point is that you're making progress without the pressure. For older adults, especially those living with joint pain, reduced stamina, or even mild cognitive decline, this method creates an easy rhythm. It's visual, it's tactile, and it gives the brain a simple signal: this is enough for now. That kind of grace is often more powerful than grit. So go ahead, choose your basket, set your boundary, and take one gentle, no-pressure step toward a lighter space and a clearer mind. Hack 4. Memory Journal Trick. One of the hardest parts of decluttering, especially after 60, isn't about stuff. It's about stories. That cracked teacup isn't just porcelain. It's the one you held while talking to your sister every Sunday. That faded concert ticket? It's a time machine back to the summer you danced in the rain. Letting go of things can feel like letting go of parts of yourself. That fear of forgetting, the quiet worry that if you give something away, the memory goes with it, can freeze you in place. And that's where the memory journal trick comes in. This method doesn't ask you to toss anything right away. Instead, it invites you to preserve the story before making any decision. Here's how it works. When you come across a sentimental item that tugs at your heart but clutters your space, take a photo of it. Then, write a few lines, just a short reflection about what it meant to you. Not a long diary entry, just enough to keep the emotion, the meaning, the memory. You can use a notebook, a phone app, or even voice record it if writing is hard. The goal is to transfer the feeling from the object to a place where it can live safely, without taking up physical space. This is what Thelma Rose started doing with her collection of costume brooches. Each one reminded her of someone: a co-worker from the amusement park, a cousin who mailed one from New Orleans, a neighbor who dropped it off after a garage sale. She couldn't wear them all, and most were gathering dust, but tossing them felt cold. So instead, she set up a small journal and gave each brooch a page. She took a picture, wrote who it came from, and one memory tied to it. As she filled the pages, something shifted. She began to smile, not out of guilt, but gratitude. And when she finally gave many of them away, she didn't feel loss. She felt lighter, more connected to what mattered. The reason this works so well for older adults is because we naturally become more reflective with age. We hold on to objects not just because they're useful, but because they remind us of who we were, who we loved, and how far we've come. The memory journal trick gives you a way to honor that journey without being weighed down by every item. It's also a powerful tool for families. Sharing the journal with children or grandchildren can spark conversations that might otherwise never happen. Imagine your granddaughter learning the story behind your travel mug from the 70s diner, where you had your first date. Now, that's a legacy. Letting go doesn't have to mean forgetting. With the memory journal trick, you create something lasting, something portable, something that tells your story better than a box in the attic ever could. And maybe, just maybe, you'll find that your memories don't live in things, they live in you. Hack 5. Declutter with a roll. What if decluttering wasn't just a chore, but a chance to define how your story gets told? Instead of seeing it as cleaning, see it as curating. You're not just going through stuff, you're shaping your personal museum. One where every item you choose to keep says something meaningful about who you are, where you've been, and what matters most to you now. This approach is called decluttering with a roll, and it's a complete mindset shift, especially powerful for those over 60, who've accumulated decades of memories, souvenirs, and gifts. It helps remove the guilt, the confusion, and the weight of decision-making by placing you in a clear, active role, the curator of your life. Thelma Rose found herself overwhelmed when trying to organize her hallway closet, which had quietly turned into a time capsule of every phase of her life. Old uniforms, expired coupons, her mother's lace gloves, her late husband's shaving kit, and somewhere, tangled in it all, were her own memories. But instead of labeling herself a hoarder or telling herself she should have done this sooner, she took a different route. She asked herself, if my grandchildren walked through this closet, what would I want them to learn about me? That simple question transformed her task. She became the curator, the storyteller. She began selecting items not out of fear, but out of meaning. The gloves? Kept. They reminded her of dancing in the living room with her mother during long winters. The coupons? Tossed. They said nothing about her values or her life. She even created a small legacy shelf, where she displayed 3 keepsakes with handwritten notes next to each, one for courage, one for laughter, and one for love. When you declutter with a roll, you start asking richer questions. Does this reflect the life I want to be remembered for? Does this still speak to who I am today? Would I be proud to pass this on? Or is it simply something I haven't dealt with yet? This technique also dissolves that common fear that many seniors carry, that if they throw something away, they're discarding their history. But the truth is, preserving your story isn't about keeping everything. It's about choosing the right things to keep. The things that represent you, not bury you. Think of your home as a living biography. Your walls, your shelves, your drawers, they're not storage units, they're chapters. And like any great story, not every scene needs to be saved. Just the ones that move the heart and reveal the soul. So when you walk into a room today, don't say, I need to clean this. Instead say, I'm going to decide what deserves a place in my story. That's not a burden. That's a privilege. And it just might turn a dreaded task into something unexpectedly joyful. Hack 6. The 30-day invisible box. One of the biggest emotional blocks to decluttering, especially for those of us over 60, is the haunting question, what if I need this someday? That question alone has kept countless objects in homes for years. The blender you haven't used since 98. The sweater with the tag still on it. The pile of mystery cables you're convinced will suddenly be useful again. And deep down, it's not just about the object, it's about avoiding regret. No one wants to throw something out today and wish they hadn't tomorrow. That's where the 30-day invisible box comes in. It's not about making hard decisions on the spot. It's about creating a soft landing for indecision. Here's how it works. When you come across items that make you pause, things you're not ready to toss, but don't actively use, put them in a box. Seal it, write today's date on it, and store it out of sight. No peeking, no rechecking. Then, leave it alone for 30 days. Why 30? Because a month is long enough for your mind to detach from the emotional grip of maybe someday, while still being short enough to keep your momentum going. When the time is up, revisit the box. If you haven't thought about or needed anything inside, you've just proven to yourself that you can live without it. No guilt, no what-ifs, just clarity. This method is especially helpful for seniors who've lived through times of scarcity, those who were raised to never waste, or who kept things just in case. That mindset is understandable, even admirable. But in retirement, with shifting priorities and often smaller living spaces, it can also keep you stuck. The 30-day invisible box gives you a gentle way to challenge those habits without feeling like you're betraying your values. Thelma Rose used this trick with her overflowing junk drawer, which was really a time capsule of odds and ends, old keys, expired coupons, broken pens, souvenir magnets, even a remote with no matching device. Every time she tried to clean it, she'd hesitate. But what if this key is important? So she grabbed a shoebox, filled it, taped it shut, and wrote the date in bold red marker. 30 days later, she opened it and laughed. She couldn't even remember what most of the items were. They had no emotional pull, no current purpose. And with that, she let them go, with peace, not panic. There's also something empowering about trusting your own patterns. This box shows you in real time what you actually use and what's just taking up space. It builds confidence in your decision-making. Because when you prove to yourself that you didn't miss it, you don't have to fear losing it. So next time you're torn between keeping and tossing, don't force the answer. Just press pause. Create a 30-day box, tuck it away, and move on. When you return to it, you won't just be looking at objects, you'll be looking at your growth. And that's the kind of clarity that no drawer full of dusty batteries can offer. Hack 7. 5-minute forgiveness habit. This might be the most powerful hack of all, and yet, it has nothing to do with baskets or bins or where to put the Tupperware lids. It's called the 5-minute forgiveness habit, and it's the emotional anchor that makes decluttering sustainable, gentle, and truly healing, especially after 60, when every object can carry decades of unspoken weight. You see, clutter isn't just physical, it's emotional. Every time you open a cabinet or lift the lid of a storage bin, you're not just sorting through stuff. You're sorting through layers of your past, purchases made out of hope, gifts that came with expectations, items kept out of guilt, and souvenirs from versions of yourself you no longer recognize. That's why decluttering can feel so deeply personal, and sometimes painful. What no one talks about is the shame that bubbles up during this process. Maybe you feel embarrassed for holding on to something so long. Maybe you regret spending money on something you never used. Or maybe, the hardest of all, you wish you had started sooner, before the attic got too full, before your knees began to ache, before the energy ran low. That's where this habit comes in. After each decluttering session, even if you only cleared one drawer or one small corner, take 5 quiet minutes to forgive yourself. Not in theory, in practice. Sit, breathe, put your hand over your chest, and say something simple, yet real. I forgive myself for what I didn't know then. I honor the decisions I made with the tools I had, and I release the pressure to do it all at once. Thelma Rose began doing this when she noticed how often she was beating herself up while organizing. Every item came with a harsh comment. Why did I keep this? I should have thrown this out years ago. What was I thinking? But one evening, instead of pushing through, she lit a candle and just sat with her feelings. She realized she wasn't mad about the clutter. She was grieving parts of her life she hadn't fully processed. Letting go meant closing chapters, and closing chapters takes courage. Forgiveness clears what even the best storage system can't. It clears emotional clutter, the invisible weight that holds your heart hostage even after the shelves are clean. And when you practice this regularly, you begin to trust the process. You stop viewing decluttering as a punishment and start seeing it as a powerful form of self-respect. This habit is especially meaningful for seniors, who often carry decades of decisions in their homes. But the truth is, your worth has never been in the objects you've kept. It's in your resilience, your wisdom, your stories, and now, in your willingness to release what no longer serves you. So the next time you sort through old files or clean out a drawer and feel that sting of regret, don't power through it. Sit with it, then forgive. That's how peace begins, not in the closet, but in the heart. Thelma Rose didn't set out to become a minimalist. She wasn't chasing an Instagram-worthy home or trying to impress anyone with spotless counters and alphabetized drawers. What she did do was far more meaningful. She became intentional. She stopped letting her past run the show. She stopped allowing someday to hold her hostage. She shifted from surviving in her space to truly living in it. It started quietly, a single shelf, a forgotten drawer. There was no grand transformation overnight. But with every small decision, something else was changing too. Her energy, her focus, her sense of ownership over her life. The house that once felt like a museum of obligations slowly became a reflection of who she is now, not just who she used to be. And here's the beautiful part. The change didn't make her feel like she was losing anything. Quite the opposite. She felt freer, lighter, more present. With fewer visual distractions, her mind began to settle. She found herself actually looking forward to mornings again, opening the blinds, sipping tea in her favorite chair, reading the paper with the sun streaming in. No guilt, no chaos, just peace. But perhaps the biggest shift of all came when her grandchildren came over for a weekend visit. For the first time in years, the living room wasn't filled with boxes and bins. There was open space, enough room for puzzles on the floor, for building forts out of couch cushions, for laughter that echoed instead of being muffled by clutter. As she watched them play, Thelma didn't feel sadness over what she had let go. She felt joy over what she had made room for. She had, in every sense of the word, reclaimed her space. But more importantly, she had reclaimed herself. Because here's the truth. Decluttering after 60 isn't about tidying up. It's about rewriting your relationship with your home, your time, your energy, and your identity. It's not about what you're giving away. It's about what you're giving back to yourself. Space to breathe, clarity to think, freedom to live on your own terms. So if you're staring at a room that feels overwhelming or a drawer you've been avoiding for years, take heart. You don't have to do it all today. You don't even have to do it all at all. But if you can begin with one shelf, one basket, one memory, you just might find what Thelma Rose found. That the real treasure isn't in what you keep. It's in what you choose to let go and the life you make room for after. Which of these 7 powerful hacks gave you that aha moment? Was it the memory journal, the invisible box, or maybe just realizing you're allowed to forgive yourself along the way? Drop a heart in the comments and let us know which one felt like it was meant just for you. Your story could inspire someone else who's feeling stuck. And if this video helped you breathe a little deeper, take a moment to share it with someone who deserves peace in their space too. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell, because the next small shift could lead to your biggest breakthrough yet.